So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, a couple of days ago over the live stream, we went over my quarterback rankings and my quarterback tier list for this year's draft class, but the one position that I think everybody has their eye on this offseason, if you're a Detroit Lions fan, is the edge rushing position, right? A lot of people has this as the number one position of need for the Detroit Lions this season and have a lot of edge rushers ranked at the very top of the class when it comes to selecting the number 2 overall pick. So today, we are going to be going over the edge ranking. We are going to be ranking every single major contributor in this class at the edge rusher position, ranking them by tiers, ranking them what I expect them to do in their NFL careers, and just ranking this edge class as far as what would fit the Detroit Lions the absolute best. This is a tier list, and this is a ranking based off of course, skill, talent, projection, but also for this list in particular, it is also a little bit of a fit off of what I believe in how they will transition into the NFL and fit the Lions defensive scheme, as this is a video surrounding the Detroit Lions and what they would rank these players as. All right, because as talented as you are, as much upside or potential as you might have, sometimes the system or the scheme just doesn't fit that player. So that was taken into account, but this is more and primarily based off of skill, talent, and projection. So with that being said, and without any further ado, let's get on to the tier list and let's get on to these edge rankings. Now, with tier 1, the top tier of edge rushers in this year's class, these are the guys, for me, tier 1 is the best of the best. These are the guys that separated themselves. These are the guys that are the top of the draft class, and these are the guys that I see being future all-pro caliber talents, right? If everything works out, if stuff goes in their favor a little bit, these are the guys that I can realistically see reaching that 15, 20 sack margin. These are the guys that I can see being in the conversations for all pros, defensive players of the year, and things like that. And with that being said, the first player on that tier list is Kayvon Thibodeaux, pass rusher from Oregon. Now, Kayvon Thibodeaux is a freakish athlete. I mean, he tested very well at his pro day, tested very well at the combine in the drills that he did do, looked very good at his pro day as far as movement skills and as far as flexibility, movability, change of direction, etc. And when you look at his tape, when you look at his numbers on top of the freakish athleticism, it's hard not to see Kayvon Thibodeaux succeeding in the NFL. I mean, 22 sacks and 72 hurries and 812 pass rushing snaps is elite production at the college football level. And I understand production, I understand numbers aren't everything at college football, but in my opinion, if you cannot produce at the college football level, there better be a very, very good reason why you didn't. Because if you can't produce at the college football level, I find it very hard to believe that you will produce highly at the NFL level. Yes, I am aware that it happens, but regardless or in the exception of extraordinary situations or in exception of specific scheme fits where maybe, you scheme production out of a player, if you don't produce in college more times than not, you're not going to produce in the NFL. And Kayvon Thibodeaux, in my opinion, for this year's class, is the best combination of potential, traits, production, floor, ceiling, and what I think he will be at the NFL level. Now, when talking about Kayvon Thibodeaux, the big things that come up are personality and injuries. I'm not gonna mark a player down for what they might do, right? I'm not gonna mark a player down for maybe getting injured in the NFL because that's simply out of their control. And at the end of the day, anybody can get injured on any play or at any second of every day in the NFL, right? I mean, at some point, you'll probably face an injury. At some point, all of these guys will likely miss time in the NFL. I'm not going to mark a player down for what might happen. I'm going to mark players down for what they can control and what is physically possible for them to achieve. And then the other one is character issues. I don't see the character issues as much as other people, right? I don't see him taking these plays off. You know, when you talk to people about, okay, Kayvon Thibodeau's taking these plays off, I was expecting him to take like 3 to 4 reps off a game. I was expecting him to, you know, not even try to make a tackle if the play wasn't to his side. That's just not the case. Like the narrative is simply overblown for Kayvon Thibodeaux. He is a great talent. He will be a very good talent in the NFL. And if you're telling me the Lions will select an edge rusher at number 2, Kayvon Thibodeaux is my guy. Now, that is it. That's it for tier 1. Kayvon Thibodeaux is the only edge rusher I believe will be a future All-Pro in the NFL. Now, that doesn't mean he's the only edge rusher that I think will be good or the only edge rusher I believe should go in the first round. He is the only edge rusher I would even consider taking at the number 2 overall spot. And I know people are going to be upset, but I'm going to explain my thinking in just a second as we get on to tier 2, of course, topped by Aidan Hutchinson. Aidan Hutchinson, the product out of Michigan, is on the top of many people's draft boards and is at the top of many Michigan and Detroit Lions fans as far as what they want to see in the NFL draft. Aidan Hutchinson is far closer to his ceiling than what Kayvon Thibodeaux is. Kayvon Thibodeaux, I think, has the ceiling of an all-pro pass rusher. I'm talking guys like Khalil Mack, Von Miller, Myles Garrett, and TJ Watt. Those are the kind of players I think he can be in regards with after a couple of years of pro production, after a few years of developing in the NFL. Aidan Hutchinson, I don't think has that same ceiling. I think he's far more pro-ready right now than Kayvon Thibodeaux is. I think he's far more prepared for the NFL jump, and I think he might even have better production in his rookie season, although I think it will be very close. But Aidan Hutchinson is simply far closer to his ceiling and simply has far less potential than what Kayvon Thibodeaux can get you. Aidan Hutchinson is a good player. He's a good run defender. He's a great leader. He has a lot of positive and great qualities about him. He's just simply not as gifted, and he just simply doesn't have the ceiling of Kayvon Thibodeaux. Now, tier 2 is not a bad pass rushing class, right? Tier 2 are the guys that I believe will make multiple Pro Bowls. These are the guys like Max Crosby to Romeo Okwara range, right? These are the guys that can make Pro Bowls. These are the guys that are going to get you 7.5 to 10 sacks a season. They're going to pressure a quarterback. They're going to make big plays for you in a season. They might even be the reason you make the playoffs if you are a team in need of an edge rusher, right? These are the guys that can command big money. These are the guys that can get big deals, and these are the guys that can go to Pro Bowls. But I just don't see the all-pro, the 15 to 20 sack potential out of these guys necessarily, and that's how I feel about Aidan Hutchinson, right? My pro comp for him is Max Crosby. I love Max Crosby. Max Crosby's a great player. I would absolutely, if they were to redraft that draft class, Max Crosby would certainly go within the top 20. I'd say he'd go definitely in the first round, top 32. But you're not going to take Max Crosby with the 2nd overall pick in the NFL draft if Myles Garrett's available, if TJ Watt or Von Miller is available, right? You're not going to take that guy number 2 overall because he's just not worthy of the number 2 overall selection. Now, of course, those are the big guys that I wanted to talk about. The other guys I see in tier 2 are Jermaine Johnson, who is my 3rd edge rusher, very close to Aidan Hutchinson. I think Aidan's floor is a little bit higher, but I think Jermaine's ceiling is maybe just a little bit ahead of what Aidan Hutchinson can be. I think they'll be very similar prospects in the NFL. I think they will be very, very similar as far as how their career pans out, right? The edge rusher out of Georgia edges out this class as well, edges out the tier 2. Those are the only 3 guys in my tier 2 of pass rusher. I can see all 3 of them going to Pro Bowls. I can see all 3 of them, being 7 to 10 sack guys. I can see all of them making big plays, being player of the week, being team MVPs, right? Just like Max Crosby did, just like Romeo Okwara did a few years ago. But for me, these are just guys that I don't think have the same ceiling. I don't think will pan out as well as Kayvon Thibodeaux. Now, tier 3 are the guys that I think will be solid edge rushers, maybe get a Pro Bowl nod here and there, but guys that I think will just be solid starters, full-time starters in the NFL for a very long time. And although they might not be the biggest names, they're definitely going to earn some good contracts. They're definitely going to get signed to their 2nd deal, and they're definitely going to have a major impact on whatever team they end up joining. Now, these are the guys around the 32 to 34 range, guys that you'll get at the tail end of the first round, if not even early to middle of the 2nd round. And starting off this list and starting off this tier is George Karlaftis. Now, for me, I'm not a big fan of George Karlaftis. He didn't really have the production, and I understand he's a very young player. Personally, I just don't see the hype around George Karlaftis. He's not my kind of player. He's not the player I really want on the Detroit Lions. I can see the upside. I can kind of see why people like him so much, but for me, he's just not a player that I really love for the Lions. And he's certainly not the top 5 pass rusher that a lot of people had him pegged as the college football season came to an end. Other guys in this range include David Ojabo. David Ojabo is somebody that I think has a lot of upside, very similar to Aiden Hutchinson. I think him and Aiden Hutchinson made each other look better at the college football level, right? They're both future NFL players. They're both future stars, and they're definitely both future starters in the NFL. But I think David Ojabo is just a little bit of a tick behind where I would put Aiden Hutchinson. I would also put Arnold Ebiketie in here. I think he has some high upside, some good athleticism. I think he has a lower floor than Jermaine Johnson. I think he's like that lesser Jermaine Johnson. If you miss out on Jermaine in the early to middle of the first round, you can get Arnold Ebiketie early to middle of the second round, and I think you're going to get not necessarily the same production, but I think you can get solid production out of Arnold Ebiketie. And then Boye Mafa, Drake Jackson, Kingsley Enagbare, and Maja Sanders edge out tier 3, right? These are the guys that I think will be good players. I think they will be starters in the NFL, but I don't think they're necessarily going to be the top end guys. I don't think they're going to be the storyline of this draft class 5, 10, 15 years down the road, but they're definitely going to be solid players that get solid playing time and will definitely be key contributors to whatever team is lucky enough to land them in the early day 2, if not middle of day 2 of this year's draft. Now, tier 4 for me are guys that I think are going to be rotational players, the guys that will have an impact but probably won't break out, probably won't be full-time starters on any defensive line, but will move around the NFL and definitely have some production to brag about at the end of their career. These are the guys like Nick Bonito, Cameron Thomas, Josh Paschal, Sam Williams, and Tyreek Smith. Guys that, they're good players, like they're great college players, but I just don't see them, really doing a whole lot in the NFL. They'll get some sacks, they'll get some production for sure, but at the end of the day, they're not going to be the highlight of this class. And at the end of the day, if they retire, they're going to be good. They're going to impact the NFL for sure, but I just don't see them being anything special in the NFL. Now, with that being said, those are really the edge rankings. Those are all the notable players that I had on here. Yes, there's more edge rushers. Yes, this probably only reaches about the 4th, maybe the early 5th rounds of the NFL draft, but after that, the odds of them being anything particularly well in the NFL aren't super, super high. So I wanted to really, tier out the top guys, right? I really want to hit the top 15, 20 pass rushers in this class. And I ended up hitting 16 edge rushers in this year's class. After the 16th edge rusher, you're not usually going to find anything super good. So I kind of cut it off there because, you can go through the rest of the edge rushers in this class. They're all in tier 5. The tier 5 of being late day 3 to undrafted free agent that likely won't have a significant impact on the NFL. But with that being said, that is my quarterback tier rankings. Just to go over it really quickly one more time, Kayvon Thibodeaux is the only player in tier 1 and the only player I see all pro potential out of. Aiden Hutchinson, Jermaine Johnson, and Travon Walker edge out tier 2 as your potential multiple Pro Bowl guys that I think will get 8 to 10 sacks a season, guys that I think will be very good NFL players and reach multiple Pro Bowls between the 3, but guys that I just don't see getting that 15 to 20 sacks of a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt. Tier 3 are your consistent starters right there, your guys that might not be Pro Bowlers, might get a Pro Bowl not here and there, but are guys that can just be solid players. Guys like, of course, George Karlaftis, David Ojabo, Arnold Ebiketie, Boye Mafa, Drake Jackson, Kingsley Enagbare, I believe is how you say it, the pass rusher out of South Carolina, and Maja Sanders from Cincinnati. And then tier 4, the guys that'll be rotational guys that you can get early on day 3, Nick Bonito, Cameron Johnson, Josh Paschal, Sam Williams, and Tyreek Smith. Now, with that being the case, I did have a couple of key things I wanted to touch on. I think the best value in this year's class will be either Boye Mafa or Arnold Ebiketie at the end of the first round or early in the second round. I think they can both very well sneak into the first round, but if they fall to 34, if they fall even further than that, whatever team ends up picking them up will be extremely lucky and will get a very, very good quality player right off the bat and will have a very good long-term pass rusher for themselves. Again, if you're at number 2, I would take Kayvon Thibodeaux. Kayvon Thibodeaux is my number 1 edge rusher in the class, followed, of course, by Hutchinson, then Jermaine, then Travon Walker, but Kayvon Thibodeaux, to me, really separated himself from the rest of this class. He's the best player. He's the best combination of height, of floor, of ceiling, of measurables, of statistics, of production, of potential, of tools. Whatever you want to look at, I think that Kayvon Thibodeaux, I think Kayvon Thibodeaux edges out this class in just about everything other than off the field drama that I think is extremely overblown. But with all that being said, that is life for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about the edge rankings down in the comments below. What would you change? What players would you move around? And who is your number one edge rusher in this year's class? I'd be very curious to you guys think. But with all of that being said, that is life for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions!